just waiting for you.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 42 of the Brooklyn Fishing Club podcast. I'm your host, Victor Lucia, founder and president of the BFC. This episode is brought to you by Brooklyn Fishing Club, the premier fishing club of New York City. Join the club today and we'll send you 2 t-shirts, 2 pins, and a 60-inch BFC logo measuring tape. You'll also gain access to our private online forum, events, trips, and more. Visit brooklynfishingclub.com today and become a member of the greatest fishing club on the planet. On this episode, we're taking a trip to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico.
You boys like Mexico? Yeah!
Where our next guest was born and raised. He knows it like the back of his hand, and I'm planning a trip to fish with him in 2023. If you're a club member and that's something you'd be interested in, DM me on Instagram at Brooklyn Fishing Club. He caught the world record snook from the surf, and he's here to share his story. Ladies and gentlemen, Wes Brough.
Yeah, my parents moved down here before I was born, almost 40 years ago now. And so I ended up growing up down here, not too far from the beach, and just fishing off the beach all the time.
Who got you into fishing?
Fished quite a bit with my dad growing up, and then just kept going from there. It was like small tackle and cut bait fishing when I was young, and then started using lures little by little, and then just realized that you get bigger and bigger stuff off the beach, and kept getting broken off on. I'd hook something bigger and I get broken off. Then I go back and like re-gear everything and go after those fish again, and then start catching stuff and then get broken off by something bigger. And then you find out you got to get better tackle all the time. And yeah, that was just kind of the trip to keep catching bigger and bigger stuff.
What do you find is the species of fish that breaks you off the most?
Mostly the stuff that'll break you off, mostly up in the rocks, like some of those, the big snapper, the big cubera snapper, the big leopard grouper up in the rocks.
What was the name of that grouper you said? Because I think that was one of the pictures you showed me at ICAST where I was like, oh my God, that fish is so beautiful.
So probably the beautiful one that you saw that was from up in the rocks is called the hawkfish.
Oh yeah.
Those have the lines and the pretty it's like a blue and orange colors and stuff on them. And
are you using all artificials now, or do you use some bait sometimes? Or
it's primarily artificials. During the summertime, we get big schools of mullet running through, and sometimes when the fish are so focused on the bait that you can't get them to chase lures, you can't get them to leave the school of bait at all to chase lures. We'll snag mullet out of the school and throw live mullet on sometimes, but for the most part, we're artificial.
When did you start turning this from like a hobby into more of like a guide business? Like how did that transition come about?
Oh man, I was going every day at the time anyways, and I'd go and hang out in the tackle shop like in the afternoons and run into a lot of people in there that were going through the tackle shop. And then the owner was like, oh man, I'll send you business if you want to start guiding. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do it for work. I like doing it for fun. And then after, I think it was probably a couple of years, he was like trying to get me to guide. And finally it was like, all right, fine. I'll get a couple setups. I'll take some people. And then it just kind of went from there. I had a couple setups, and I'd take 1 or 2 people a week, and take them to go catch jacks or roosterfish. Or back in the day, there was a lot seemed like there was a lot more fish around to catch back years ago. And so I started doing that when I was 16, I believe, is when I first started taking people.
Wow, that's pretty young.
And yeah. Now it's and I'll be 34 this month, so it's coming up 17, 18 years now.
Oh, cool. So you're an 88 kid like me then?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. September 88. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's so cool, man. So you were pretty much like a high school kid, like taking people on like professional surf casting charters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back then it didn't feel like super professional. It was just like, oh yeah, come on, charge you $75. I got the gear, and I'll take you to go catch fish. And so we'd go and catch fish, and it just kind of went from there. And then, later I ended up getting married, and then it was like, okay, if I'm going to do this for real, for work, then I probably need to advertise a little bit, make it like more official, and and actually have some business rolling in. And so, made brochures and did the whole business thing. And then the business grew. And because of where we live here, being a tourist town, there's a lot of timeshares. So people would come back every year. So you get a lot of repeat clients, and every year coming back to fish with you. And now this town has just grown so much as a tourist industry. It's just like a revolving door of people all the time coming into Cabo. And so it's just a numbers game now. You don't even need to advertise. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess you do it long enough too that, your name gets out there.
Normally when you think of Cabo San Lucas, like, at least to me, I've been there one time when I was a kid. I did some fishing off of like a sport fishing boat. Like when you think of Cabo, the normal person, the average angler thinks, big boats and mainly boat fishing. So, one thing I really remember from being a kid there was, and it might have been because I was younger, but the size of the waves on the beach. I know it's like it's got a great beach break. I know skimboarders that go there. What is that beach break must pose like a pretty big obstacle when you're trying to land a fish, right?
It's interesting. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you don't have a lot of experience with the big break like that on the beach, then when you're landing fish, you tend to lose a few of them because it really is working with the waves instead of trying to fight against them. So we have a big drop off here where right beyond the waves, the shelf just kind of drops off, and that's why we get that big shore break where the waves just run from the ocean, come clear up to the beach, and they don't form until they get right up near the shore because it's so deep. And so it ends up creating a lot of like undertow pulling back right at the edge. So when you go to land your fish, you get your fish right up in there, you think you have him, and then all of a sudden there's this big rush of water pulling back down underneath, and in your mind you're pulling against this fish thinking you're going to pull him up on the beach, and then you get the hook pulls, or the fish turns sideways in that current and it pulls your hook from the opposite direction, or you tear them out. Or so the key is to actually use the waves as they're coming in. You walk backwards and pull up the beach, and then when they're pulling out, you give in to that fish and let them go back down with the waves, everything to keep the tension nice and even so you don't lose them.
So you're kind of dancing with the fish.
Yeah, you're going back and forth for sure, and then you're kind of watching the swell behind to surf him up the beach, and if you get him up with not too much water over the sand, then you can hold him for a second, and the water runs out from underneath him, and you got him on the sand.
Have there ever been any, I'm sure there have, but any memorable fish that you saw in the wash that did not make it onto the beach?
Oh, man, yeah. Quite often, actually.
It must be heartbreaking.
Yeah, the biggest Dorado I ever hooked, mahi. The biggest one I ever hooked. I had him, fought him through all the jumps. I managed to keep the lure in him through all the jumping. And I got him up into that last wave, and the wave formed up, and he was cruising right in the barrel of the wave. I could see him, and it was like he looked at me and just turned his head and shook once in the wave, and the lure pulled right in the wave there.
Oh.
And he just turned away in the wave. He was such a big one too. He was probably, I don't know, 45 to 50 pounds. He was big bull, like those ones you see in Panama.
That's crazy, man. What is your PB mahi from the beach?
No, it was a little bull, probably in the 30-pound range, 32.
That is a massive mahi off the beach. That's crazy. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the best seasons going by species of fish. So for the most part on my list of fish that people would come down there to target, it would be rooster, cubera, mahi, snook. Is there anything that I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, we get runs of other fish mixed in there. Our cool water season has a lot of the Sierra mackerel, and they're very similar to like Spanish mackerel on the East Coast. They just get a little bit bigger.
So what season is that? Cool water season?
Those kind of start in December, and they run through about the beginning of April or so. That's the mahi would be kind of starting in, I would say, end of September through December.
Okay. And then cubera?
So the fall. The cubera are very end of April, May, June, and the beginning of July.
And the infamous rooster fish that everyone is trying to get.
The roosters. So the bigger ones, they start running as soon as the mullets start running through, which is usually about mid-May through, and then the last of them kind of hang around till we start getting the hurricanes and tropical storms messing everything up on the shoreline, which is usually around mid-August or so. So mid-May through mid-August.
And when would you say is like the best time to get your shot at the biggest rooster? Like, is there a time when you might get more roosters, but they're not like big ones? Like, how? I really don't know much. There's
there's usually a really strong run of them at the very beginning of the season. So like the last week in May, first week in June, sometime in there usually has about 4 or 5 days where it's really just crazy on fire. You can't do anything wrong, and it's all big fish. So there's a good shot at them there, and then the middle of June, the water temperature often fluctuates, gets cold water and hot water currents coming in, and it's always shifting the fish up. So like you'll get good days, and then there'll be 3-4 days of nothing, and then you'll get 1 or 2 days where you found them, and then so it's kind of on and off. And then July is a little bit more steady, where you have the big schools of mullet have settled into the area, and they've picked their beaches where they're staying on, and it's more consistent. You can go and find them, but they tend to be on big schools of bait, which means they're not always feeding as aggressively. So you have to wait till you see the fish come charging in after a bait fish, and then cast on them. It's a lot of sight casting and spotting the fish, feeding, and then it's skill and luck. You right place, right time, and a good cast.
Yep, that's usually it. And then so now we're going to talk about the snook. And the snook, I know, is a very special fish to you because you just got the world record snook. Like, when was it? Last year you got it?
That was last year.
Yeah, we got to hear. We got to hear this story. We got to hear this. That was a 20+ year record, right?
Yeah, the previous record, it held for 20 years. So my fish was 51 pounds, 5 ounces, and the previous was 47 something. So a decent jump on it. And yeah, it was the end of June last year. I got him on the 28th of June, and that was wild. That was not something I was going after. Not planning on it at all. It was a completely a fluke catch for me, and it was a day where I wasn't even supposed to be out. Not supposed to be out guiding at all. The weather was really bad. I was actually helping doing a friend who also guides down here, doing him a favor because he had caught COVID, and one of the guys who was going to go out with him had made a trip down here especially to go out with him to catch roosterfish, and then he caught COVID, and so this kid was down here and nothing to do, and the guide called me up and goes, will you take him out as a favor to me? Just take him to go look for a roosterfish. He's dying to get one. I'm like, man, the weather's terrible. He goes, I know, but this kid's dying to catch a fish. So I go, well, all I got open is maybe going in an afternoon. And so he goes, all right, here's the number. Talk to him. Tell him, give him straight up what the weather's like. And if he wants to go, he can go. If not, then. So I called him and I told the kid, I was like, man, the weather is terrible. The wind's blowing like 30 miles an hour on the beach. And the spot that we would have a chance to get a roosterfish is where the weather is the worst. I mean, it's really just blowing hard. The waves are big. We got a storm coming in another day or so. And he goes, man, I'll fish through anything. I'll do whatever. I'll fish in any weather. And I go, well, if you'll do it, I'll do it. So let's go do it. So we went out to the beach that evening, and boy, the wind was blowing so hard we were getting sandblasted just walking down to the beach. And I looked at the kid. I remember telling him, I'm like, man, I don't know if there's anyone else crazy enough to be out here doing this. I've done it before, but not too many people will get out here in this weather. And we got down to the corner, and sure enough, all the bait was there. And we waited till the sun started going down a little bit, and the roosterfish came in, and they started feeding on this bait. And I hooked a big one and passed it to him right away. He fought this thing for 45 minutes, and it was like a 55-pound rooster or so. And we got all the pictures and the release video and everything. He was just stoked out of his mind. And then we hooked another one. He landed another one about the same size, and then he got a real big Jack Crevalle, about 25-pound Jack Crevalle. And by that time, sun had gone down. It was dark. We couldn't see our lures land anymore. And we had about a half-mile walk back to the car. And I said, let's pack it up. It was a great evening. Bad weather, great evening, though, for fish. Let's pack it up. And so we actually, hooked our lures up, put our backpacks on, and we're starting to walk. And all we heard in the dark was just a shower of fish going nuts. And it was like, we looked at each other and go, okay, one more cast. So we threw everything back down and ran down to the beach, and it was all the mullet flying out of the water. And I cast in there, and all I could see was this big blow up in the dark out there. And then I was hooked up, and I figured for sure it was another big roosterfish. And so I looked at the kid. I'm like, man, you want to fight this thing in? And he goes, nah, man, I'm tired. I'm worked. I fought 3 big fish already. You fight him. And I go, all right, well, it's probably a big rooster. We're going to let him go anyways. And, it's too dark to get a picture of him. So I'm just going to horse him in and get going. And I had heavy line. It was a setup that I had 100-pound braid on. And it was a 20,000 Saltiga, one of the big old reels. And so I just cranked the drag down, locked it down, and started walking backwards on the beach and just not letting this thing take an inch. And I don't know, the whole fight might have lasted 3 or 4 minutes before I drug him up onto the sand. And this thing was flopping down there, and I'm looking in the dark. I'm like, man, that does not look like a roosterfish. What the heck is that? Run down into the surf, and by the time we got close enough to see, it was this massive, massive snook in the sand. And he had taken the big stick bait I had and just swallowed the whole thing all the way down. And you couldn't even see it. It was this line coming out of his mouth. And he was shaking all over the place. And so there was by the time we got that lure out of the bottom of his mouth, he had torn himself up pretty good. So we knew he wasn't going to make it. And so I had gotten close to catching the record a year before that. I was within 3 pounds of the record before. And so I knew what the record was. And when I'd lifted this one up, I tried to curl him with one arm and couldn't get him curled. And I was like, I know I can curl 50 pounds. This guy is over 50 pounds. And so I thought, man, this is going to be a record if we get him back and weigh this guy. He'll be a record for sure. And so we did. We carried him back. The only problem was with all of COVID, we couldn't find. There was no place open. They had a curfew on everything, 9 o'clock curfew, and so we couldn't find anywhere to buy ice to put him on ice. And so we ran all over town looking for ice, and ended up at this kid's resort, and had to bribe one of the bellboys to bring us out a bunch of crushed ice at night. And it was about midnight by the time we got ice for this thing in an ice chest, and we had to wait till the next day for the official scale to the tackle shop with the official scale to open up. So we had to have this guy on ice overnight, and then I had a trip guiding the next morning, so I had to guide all next morning, and I didn't get to weigh him till it was like afternoon of the next day. So yeah, the whole time I'm guiding that morning, thinking my fish is losing weight as we're out on the beach, and wondering if I'm going to make the record. And sure enough, the next day we went in and weighed him, and still got 51, almost 51 and a half pounds out of him. So
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty.
You must have been sweating during that guided trip that morning.
Oh, I was dying. I was like, oh man, this thing's losing weight for sure.
How'd you do on that trip?
I think we ended up getting one rooster that next morning.
So do you think the foul weather attributed to such a good bite?
Yeah, I think we had a storm off the coast, and I think that, it was a high tide that evening too. So, you combine that high tide with a little bit of low pressure from a storm off the coast, and, the fish always tend to feed more aggressively in those conditions. And then you add the weather to it, and then they're not line shy at all. So yeah, I think it was just a whole combination of things that led up to it.
It's so crazy to me too, because when you think of Cabo, again, you're not thinking of snook. You're thinking of, like billfish. Yeah.
Well, and every time I've caught big ones down here, and most of the ones that we've caught have been, big sized fish. They've always been like an incidental catch. We're fishing for something else, going for roosterfish, or, we're fishing around a big school of mullet, and all of a sudden you get surprised with an odd bite really close into the shore, and they're hanging out underneath these schools of mullet sometimes.
So snook isn't a very common catch then in Cabo, is it? Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, no, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, there are a couple places they target them. There's an estuary near the San Jose side where they do come in, and they're in more numbers, but the best way they get them over there is fishing with bait, cut bait or live bait for the most part, because the water's so stirred up, so murky. It's a very brackish water, and so it's hard for them to see lures and stuff. So, we're usually fishing on the Pacific side where the water is a lot clearer near the shore, and so when we get them over there, yeah, it tends to be incidental. If you were to go and fish for them on purpose and sit on the beach with live bait and just leave a live bait out there for hours and hope for a bite, they do get them up that way more consistently.
That's really interesting. So you don't really, I mean, since you've gotten the record, have you had clients be like, hey, I want to go for snook exclusively, or?
I've had a couple people, ask about that, and honestly, it's not, not really something that we target like that. You can be in an area where they'll migrate through usually, and we'll throw lures for them sometimes. And I've seen, this year we saw a few of them in the waves, on the Pacific side. And I spent a few mornings throwing lures, paddle tail lures, soft swim baits, and divers, and some stick baits slow early in the morning, and tried going for them, and didn't have any luck with them, even though we had seen them in the area. But and then all of a sudden, you'll be fishing for something else, and you get surprised.
It's so wild, man. It's crazy to me that you're trying to horse this thing in, not really caring about it. It's the world record.
Yeah, the funny part is, like, if I would have known what it was, I would have played him so carefully, because snook tend to have more delicate mouths. You hook those guys, and you don't want to.
That gill plate is unforgiving.
Yeah, no, and I would have played him so carefully, and I would have probably lost him right at the end if I was playing him like that.
But you got him. You got it.
No, it was just everything lined up, and good stroke of luck.
Dude, it's so cool. I bet it was one of those fish too that, like, the picture doesn't even do it justice.
Not at all. I mean, we were in, like, it was the dark. There was no moon that night, and it was so dark that we actually got our cell phones out, and we, like, stuck them in the sand with the little lights shining on it, trying to get a little bit more light with the bigger camera. And there was some issues with being blurry. The wind was blowing so hard, you couldn't keep your hair out of your face or anything just to take the picture. And yeah, it was kind of
crazy.
Kind of like a combat fishing evening, and then trying to take a picture in the dark of, like, your.
How old was this
kid?
Catch, What's this kid's name? We got to give him a shout out. I feel like he was a soldier through this whole thing, because if he didn't push you to go, you probably would have just stayed home.
For sure, yeah. Matt, let's see his last name. I don't know that I'll pronounce it right. Matt. It starts with a S. Strel, I think. I know it's like Strehlp. Yeah.
When you say kid, how old is this kid? What, was he, like a high school kid?
I think he was like 20. I want to say he was like 21 or something.
And he was like, "We're going fishing."
Yeah, no, I mean, hardcore fisherman for sure. He loves his fishing. He's a good fisherman.
Was he bugging out when he saw that snook? He must have been losing it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that evening was one of those, like, kind of insane evenings where you get, two giant fish in the midst of chaos, and you see all kinds of stuff and bait blow up, and it was one of those unreal evenings, even though the weather was terrible. But yeah, he pulled his weight, man. He pulled through, went in the bad weather, wasn't afraid of, like, getting in there and getting in the water to release some of these fish. And yeah, he's a cool kid. I had a lot of fun fishing with him, and look forward to seeing him again sometime.
Very cool. Very cool. So you're fishing all around down there. So it's not just the Pacific side. You're also fishing the Sea of Cortez, which is on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
So is there like, do the conditions vary depending on where you go that much, or is it more or less like beaches and rocks?
It varies some. The Pacific tends to be longer stretches of sand beaches with a few points of structure on them, and more like you're fishing the corners of beaches sometimes. Or there's some beaches that are just big long sand beaches and tend to get really good migrations of fish along them. And then the Cortez side is more, there's just a lot of structure and a lot of rocky areas, and you can fish in between the rocks, around the rocks. The rocks are sharper. And then, yeah, if you go further up in the Cortez, which we don't fish too far up over on the East Cape side. If you go like an hour and a half or 2 hours up there, you got more of like a flat scenario where the water's a lot shallower. The waves are very small. And that's where you see all the guys fly fishing for roosterfish, because they get them by sight fishing them. And that's about an hour and a half or 2 hours up on the Cortez side on the East Cape.
So on an average trip, how much are you traveling?
We're usually like between 20 to 30 minutes driving time. Sometimes closer. Sometimes the bite is really close to town, and we're 5 to 10 minutes out of town. Some of the beaches will hold big schools of bait, but on average, I'd say 20 to 30 minute drive time, and cruising at some of the beaches up there. Sometimes we'll hit 2 or 3 beaches, and like right now, all the big roosters have kind of moved on, and we're starting to see like small roosters in the area chasing smaller bait, like little sardines. So you'll get roosters in the 15-pound range and more numbers of them. So they're actually pretty fun. You throw top water, and a lot of it is blind casting, and then all of a sudden you get 3, 4, 5 medium, small sized roosters like that chasing your lure on top, and they fight for it. That's a real fun. And then the odd dorado as well, the mahi that you'll get starting this time of year as well.
So what are you trying to catch on like your next trip coming up?
Well, it's actually kind of sad right now. We got a hurricane right off the coast right now, and our swell is like, I think we got forecast 17-foot swell off our coast right now.
Oh my gosh. That is
yeah, it's starting to rain. We're at the very edge of the storm right now, so it's messed up all the fishing for probably the next week and a half or 2 weeks maybe. And so I've been sitting at home going through all the footage that I took and haven't had a chance to look at drone footage, and just been having fun doing that. But right now, as soon as the storms start clearing up and the quality starts getting better, it's going to go straight into dorado season, and those medium roosters, 15 up to like 20 pounds. And yeah, it's a fun season as well. Just top water, walking the beach and casting top water and reeling.
It's all top water.
Yeah,
that's so cool. So cool. So if somebody wanted to book a trip with you and let's say do a beach fishing trip and then also like hit the rocks, like is that a multiple day type of scenario?
Well, the rocks tend to be a little bit seasonal. So for the most part this time of year, there's not much going on around the rocks. It's more open beaches and the top water casting. So the rocks will be like in end of April, May, June, beginning of July. All that season, you have like a really good shot at getting some nice fish around the rocks. The snapper migrate in and they come right up into the rocks, and then you get those cubera snapper. The end of that season overlaps with the rooster fish coming in as well. So then you can switch over to the beach and fish the beach and have a chance at the roosters as well.
That sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah,
so cool.
It can be really fun. It's interesting though. I always tell people, it's like for every really nice fish picture you got, the amount of hours you put in casting and on the beach for every good fish picture is like a lot more than people think,
Totally. All they see is the finished product. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's like you're not posting pictures of days where you don't catch anything,
Unless you love posting sunset pics.
Yeah, well.
One question I had for you is I'm looking through your Instagram. It's filled with crazy pictures and crazy footage and crazy catches. And one thing I'm thinking is some of these rocks that you're fishing on, it looks like you're pretty high up off the water. Like if you hook into something decent, are you just horsing it over the side? Or like, is there like a rock net that you're throwing out, like a pier net, like how are you getting some of these bigger fish in off the rocks?
No, it's kind of that same concept where you have the big waves coming in and they form up and they come and they crash right up into the rocks. So you use that same concept when you're fighting up high on the rocks, is you tire your fish out past the wave break. You don't try and bring him into the waves right away because he'll have a lot of energy still. So you fight him and you tire him out there, and once you can tell he's done his runs and everything, then you bring him up into that wave line and you're timing it with a nice swell coming in, and you kind of surf him and let the wave throw him up into the rocks, and then you hold him back in the rocks, and then you can, once he's laying in the rocks, if it's close enough to go down to, you can go get him. If you feel like he needs to be up a little higher, you wait for the next wave, the next big wave, and you kind of stair step him up one more level of rocks, and then run down and get him. Yeah.
Where have you lost more fish, off the rocks or off the surf?
Personally, at this point, probably I lose more myself off the beach than I do off the rocks now. The rocks, once you know how to do it and you get good at it, I don't lose too many. I also fish a heavier setup when I fish in the rocks too, so you reduce the risk of breaking off by fishing heavier setups. The beach is it can be tricky. You never know how those fish are hooked, and they're always switching back and forth right in the waves there. And this year we lost a couple of really big roosterfish where they were close enough where I got down and I touched them trying to get a hand around their tail, and they turned the wrong way and came off the hook and went right back in. I mean, they're gone. So you do lose a decent amount off the sand as well.
So are you for the cubera snapper? Are you jigging for them too? Is that mainly artificial? I've never caught one of those. They look so cool to me.
Yeah, they're
like
mainly.
hell.
I like to fish them mainly with big stick baits. But a lot of guys will use big poppers as well. I don't know. I think just as a personal preference, I have more fun catching them on stick baits where you're walking the stick bait and you're watching it on the surface, and then they just come up and pound it on the surface. It's very similar to like bass fishing, except what you're going after is much, much bigger and has giant teeth.
Let's talk a little bit about the tackle. What are we using from the surf there?
Typically, the setup is 50 or 30 pound braid on anywhere from 11 to 13 foot rod for getting out over the surf. You're throwing that. You combine that with most of the leader that we use is anywhere 80 to 100 pound. Sometimes when I'm fishing the rocks and there's really big fish in there, I'll use 150 pound leader. But everything else is 80 to 100 pound leader. Doesn't have to be fluoro. They're not line shy around the surf around here. I typically just use monofilament leader. When you're on the beach, you don't have to use a super long leader, maybe 3-4 foot long leader. And then if you switch over to the rocks, you want to make that leader as long as you can possibly cast it with it hanging outside the guides. That will save you a lot of break offs in the rocks.
What size hook are you using when you're using live bait?
I'd say probably 7/0 circles. We use quite a bit, and yeah, I mean it varies. We don't do a ton of live bait, but
that's cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any tuna or billfish or any other pelagic species caught from the shore over there?
On very rare occasions, there's a couple. There's a spot up on the East Cape where there's a couple guys have gotten the odd yellowfin off the beach, and
that's on
sometimes
artificial?
they're on mostly jigs.
That's crazy.
And then billfish, I haven't seen anyone catch billfish off the beach around here. That's kind of a project I've been working on, is trying to find a spot where I could get one off the beach, and I've gotten really close. I've had them hit my lure twice, and haven't been able to set hooks in one yet. So
you think, was it a marlin that tapped you?
It was actually a sailfish.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what, you saw it come in on the rocks?
Yeah, he came. I was working a stick bait, and he came in and he slashed at the stick bait with his bill like he was trying to kill it, and he came in twice and smacked the lure with his bill, and I couldn't get him to actually commit and take the lure.
Wow, the same fish 2 times.
Yeah, he turned around, went back out, and I got a second cast on him, and I got him to chase it in again. Yep, then he just turned around and took off, and you could just see his tail cruising the surface as he went out, and I was like,
Have you seen him before? Have you seen?
I had seen him once before. Yeah, I'd seen him once before, and then one other time I had hooked a Sierra mackerel, and as soon as I hooked it, the thing started running and started jumping in the air and kind of greyhounding across the surface way out there. And they typically don't jump at all. Like, you never see them jump once you hook them. And so it was weird to see this thing jump multiple times. And then I looked behind it, and there was a big marlin coming in behind it, chasing it.
Oh my God.
And
That's crazy.
I was like, whoa, so I opened up my bail to let this thing run out there to like free spool it. And I'm sitting on the beach going, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it, eat it. And the dumb fish turned around and ran and beached itself. Just ran right up on the beach.
No way.
And like the one time I wanted the fish to run for open water, and he just came and ran straight at me and beached himself right next to me. And then I saw the marlin turn sideways in the wave and swim out and away.
Oh my God. You saw it in the wave?
Yep. And it was,
crazy.
That was a heartbreaker,
That's crazy.
You're really, really close to.
So it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, one of these days, I've got a couple spots now where, if I put my time in, I know I can make it happen. And, the key is being able to do that, but also get it on film.
Yeah. So do you have the GoPros running like all the time when you're fishing, or?
Oh no, I tend to not like fishing with GoPros that much. It just you never end up catching the right moment with them, and you're always fighting with them. So
it's almost like a jinx. I mean, when I first started out, I was this whole club kind of started off a research project of me trying to find one common superstition that all different fishermen had. And the one one of the main things is definitely had to do with cameras. And these guys were like, now there's a camera on every cell phone, but back in the day, you never brought a camera. If a guy brought a camera, he was done. So
yeah,
I don't know. I've had some of my worst luck while it was being filmed, and always my best luck on nights like the one you're talking about with the snook, where you're like, I should have just been at home.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that is definitely, that's rung true. And at this point, it's like, what they say, if you didn't get it on camera, it didn't happen.
I know. It's one of our 3 rules of the club, unfortunately. Picture, it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's like it's such a curse, So I figured, what? Screw the bad luck. I'm gonna carry the camera, rain or shine, anytime, and eventually luck will turn around. And
definitely, it will definitely turn around. It's just a matter of time, and it seems like you're logging all these hours out there. I mean, you're out there all the time. You might as well be filming some of it.
If you're out there fishing 5, 6, 7 hours a day, 6 days a week, that's a lot of hours on the water, a lot of hours casting.
Sure is, and it all adds up. And speaking of, it all adding up and skill level and all that, when it comes to taking people out, are you vetting them to see what their skill level is? Like, are you like, I'm sure you take people from all skill levels, right? Like, but people have to know what they're getting into for this type of trip. Like, this isn't not just setting foot on a boat and going fishing. Like, this is on you. Like I'll show you where they are and how to do it. But at the end of the day, if you want to catch them, it's on the client, right?
Yeah. No, that's just kind of what it comes down to. I mean, the truth is, this many years of guiding, I've just about seen it all. You get every type of person who, from the people where you show up in the morning and it's like, oh, okay, this is a spinning reel. This is a bail.
Dude.
And so,
no way.
I mean, there's this. Yeah,
How
I
often
mean,
does that happen? Let's be real. How often does
more
that happen?
more often than you think.
No
You know,
way.
people who have no idea how to cast. Yeah,
Are you kidding
and
me, bro? This is a very extreme fishing environment. Like this is
yeah,
we're
and
not
you're
going
just
out.
like
We're not
you're
going
trying to
out to
take
the
people from
golf
0 to
course
60.
pond. Like this. Like,
Yeah, it's like, okay, cast but don't die. Run down, cast, and then run away. Run for your life. There's no shame in running from the water.
have you seen any clients get decked?
Oh yeah, no, there's people get knocked over all the time. I haven't lost anybody yet, knock on wood. But
I'm telling you, that wave break there is no joker. That beach break, that is no
no,
joke.
you do not want to underestimate it. It will take you down.
Do you see a lot of skimboarders down there?
Yeah, there's a decent amount. A lot of them tend to hang out on the beaches right close to Land's End. Those are some of the more famous skimboarding beaches, and so they all hang out down around there.
That's so cool,
But
man. So you,
yeah, I
you
mean,
grew
all
up
the
down there. You probably interacted with some crazy people because, like you said, it's a revolving door with the tourist industry.
oh yeah, I went to school with like a lot of the top skimboarder guys in the world. You know, the ones that went off and won all the competitions and stuff. We all went to school together down here.
How do you even get a kid that is obsessed with fishing to go to school in Cabo?
Well, I would fish. I was homeschooled for a lot of it down here, just because the schools down here were so bad. So my parents, my mom homeschooled my brother and I growing up, and so I'd get to fish. We'd start like at 9, so I'd get to fish super early in the morning. I'd run down to the beach, fish super early, and get back in time to start school. And then when we'd have school till about 1:30 or 2, and then fish in the evenings.
That sounds like the most epic childhood ever. What are some of the catches that you like still think about from your childhood? Like catches where you were like, all right, because you mentioned, a lot of big fish broke you off and there was a lot of trial and error. What were some of the points where you were like, that fish was a milestone. I finally cracked the code. I figured out the right tackle and how to fight them. And, all of the other factors came together. I mean, yeah.
I think probably the cubera snapper was that for me. All the other fish, if you're lucky enough to hook into them, the fight is pretty straightforward. Big open water, sand beaches. But the cubera snapper were the ones that were constantly, just breaking the bank, because they would take your lures. And back when I was younger, it was, you had to go, and I mean, I wasn't sponsored by anybody when I was young, and I'd got to go and buy all your own lures. And it was, as a kid, like a $20 lure. If you lose 1 or 2 of those in a morning, you're like really suffering. How do I go and make $20 to buy another lure? And so then it was, I remember snapper seasons coming around, and I'd go down and I'd be like nervous to throw over by the rocks, because I knew that the snapper were in there. And if I threw it in there, I would get hooked up. And if I got hooked up, most likely, kind of as it went, I'd get broken off right away. And so then I remember coming home one day, and it was kind of like, I know I've said this before to people, and told this story before, but I remember coming home and my dad asking me if I'd caught any fish. And he was like, "Oh, did you get anything down there?" And I'm like, "Man, I had 2 of them on, and they both broke me off. And then I had another one that took me out." And I remember him looking at me and goes, "You know what? You're not very good at that. Every day you come home with the same story. You get broken off. You never bring any fish home. You're not very good at that. You need to get better at catching those things."
Oh man.
And I remember just thinking,
that
I was
is
like,
some
man,
direct feedback.
yeah, it was like, dang, you're really right. I'm like doing the same thing and I'm losing them. Like, I have to start trying different stuff, So, I did realize I was getting broken off above my leader every time. The braid, as soon as the braid hit the rocks, I was done. a big part of it. Was, braid does not hold up on rocks at all. The thick mono leader, that'll scoot back and forth and will chafe, and that'll hold up on the rocks abrasion wise really well. So I started fishing with a lot longer leader, and that started helping. I started landing some more fish and not breaking off other ones. And then, but I was still breaking off the biggest ones I was hooking. I was hooking these big ones, and if I couldn't stop them in the first run, then I was breaking them off. And so I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to weather out a longer fight in the rocks. And how does that work? And one of the big things was, kind of the diagram I've told people about later on was, if you take a piece of braid between your hands and you pull it really tight, and then you bring it up to the edge of a knife and you touch it to the edge of a knife when you're pulling as hard as you can, it's going to pop right away. It's going to snap and cut through it right away. But if you take that same piece of braid and you go and it's completely loose and you run it back and forth over the edge of the knife while it's loose, you'll get, 5 or 6 or 7 times back and forth over it without it cutting through that braid. It'll scrape it up and it'll scratch it and stuff, but you'll get more runs over the edge of a knife. So if that's the rock out there and you're pulling as hard as you can back on this fish and your braid touches up against the rock, it's just going to pop like that. But if you learn to, when you've got a really big fish on that you're not going to stop and he's going to make it to that rock no matter what, you back off your drag 100% and let him run, and use your palm on the spool to kind of feather him and let him burn his energy out around this rock. Even if your line's running around the rock, you can let it run. And then when he settles down, then you put your palm on the spool and you slowly lift up and you start gaining line back little by little, really calmly, till you get back to your nice long leader. And as soon as that leader comes around the rock, you can feel the knot kind of slide around the rock. Then you start putting a little more pressure and he turns off the rock and comes off, and then he's back in open water and you can start the fight over again. And that's how you weather a longer fight when you're fishing them up in the rocks, is actually, you kind of do the opposite of what you would anticipate. You don't crack down on them as hard as you can if you know that you can't win that battle in the first run.
It's amazing how much goes into that. I mean, what you just explained probably took so long to figure out.
Yeah, a lot of lures.
That is wild, man. It's all a dance. It's a back and forth, whether you're on the rocks or the beach, it seems like. And when you're on the beach, are you looking for, is there any soft structure? Are you looking for soft structure? Or are you looking for bait and sight casting right to them?
No, it's just usually bait. And a lot of our big sand beaches are areas where these fish will cruise up and down these beaches, regardless. So you could be fishing the same spot on the beach all morning long and get different bites along the morning because stuff is cruising through.
I mean, at this point, especially after the snook, it's like, when you go out there, what do you expect? Do you expect the most wild thing ever to happen, or are you just going out there with zero expectations and you're just trying to play it cool?
Sometimes it's, those zero expectation mornings, and then you get surprised. That's the fun part. Now, with having been flying the drone now for a few years, and kind of you get a different study of fish by watching them from on top. You start to understand things a little bit more that way, what their behavior is around bait, and when they come up to rocks, or when a lure lands next to them out there, and like how they react to it. Some of them react, positively. They turn on it right away. Others spook, and so you start to learn more about fish by watching them that way. And I spend a lot of hours on the drone, actually, like watching fish and following them and, seeing how they react to stuff, casting at them while I'm trying to film on top. It's kind of a challenge trying to do both, but but you start to learn a lot more that way. That's kind of exciting to see the different species and how they react, and it's a new learning experience. When you've been looking at them from the shore your whole life, and you're really good at spotting any kind of fish or life from the shore through the waves or patterns on the top of the water, and then you take that and you add it to like a bird's eye perspective, and then you're seeing them from up on top, and it really does expand your knowledge of how fish react. So I don't know, it's always a learning experience. You get out there and you're always seeing new stuff, always learning new things. And the cool thing about here is you never know what could come into the shore. You have that deep water, you never know what'll come wandering up in.
What type of drone are you using?
Right now I'm flying the Mavic 3.
Oh, the Mavic 3. I had the Mavic 2 Pro twice. Crashed it twice while fishing. The first one I was driving the boat and trying to fly the drone. Never a good idea. And then the second one,
I've crashed that. Yeah,
I was just pushing it to the limit, man. Like I was trying to fly under a bridge, and just get a crazy shot of this river, and I just clipped a tree, and it was the middle of December, and that fucking thing just dissolved into just watch $1,000+ just disappear yet again. So yeah. I'm kind of on drone timeout over here, but I don't know when I'll mentally allow myself to buy another one now that I'm over two. Man. So
yeah, I think I've gone through 6 of them now. So.
Really? Oh my God, it makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone, man. I've crashed them all different ways.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I got to hear this. What are a few ways you've crashed a drone?
Oh man, I did the boat one, the trying to take off and land on the boat.
Yep, I cut my leg open trying to do that with one of the drones.
Yeah, I sliced my finger open doing that one.
Yeah, I cut my whole shin open from the Mavic.
Oh
propellers.
Man, yeah, I went through a finger doing that one. The other one, I had another one. I crashed in Australia. I was fishing out in Australia, and we were fishing a river, and there's these huge saltwater crocodiles on the side of the river. But whenever we come around with the boat, they'd slide into the river, and we wouldn't get a good look at them. So I'm like, man, I'm going to fly the drone. I want to get a picture or video of one of these things before we get to it on the riverbank. So I flew it around, and I found this huge one laying on the bank of the river. And I was like, oh, just a little bit closer. And this was the Mavic 2. I was like, a little bit closer in, a little bit closer. And I was like, he was looking right up at me, and I must have been like, I don't know, 5 feet above him or something, just hovering above him. And I shifted to the side a little bit, and I didn't notice there was like some little tiny vine out of a tree. And the propeller caught that vine and just wrapped up on this vine and was just spinning sideways in the air, and the video went wacky, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And then all of a sudden, all you see in the video is just mud. And
oh my God.
And I'm like, oh shoot. And then I'm like, oh, the drone's up there like a half a mile. We got to go find it on the bank. It's right next to this giant crocodile.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And so we get up there, and we pull up, and this crocodile slides in the river. And I'm like, I see the drone sitting like caked in the mud on the side of I'm like, and the guy's like, you stick your hand down there, that crocodile might come up and grab your hand. I'm like, oh shoot. I got to get the drone, man. You got to nose the boat up in there. I got to get it, So I got this thing back, and I spent that whole night at after dinner, like a couple hours with Q-tip and a little needle picking mud out of every part of this drone. It did work again, though.
How did you finally lose it?
That one I lost. I was flying a live bait out. I decided I had gotten a clip from, I think it was like a Sky Rigger company, the Sea Ulcer, and it was made for one of the Phantom drones. And I was like, oh, I can rig this up to the Mavic. And so I had flown out quite a few baits, actually, quite a few small mullet, fly them out and find a fish and drop them down on a fish out there. And I was messing around with that. and the mullet I got was a little bit bigger, and I was like, it'll handle it, So I'd fly it up, and I'm flying it out, and then I'd get this warning on the screen. It's like motor overload. I'm like, it's fine. Look at it, still flying up there, no problem. And so I pushed it a little bit further, and
Forever
the
the
thing just shut down.
optimist.
Yep, ever the optimist. The thing just shut down midair. I had my clients sitting next to me on the beach. They're all looking at the drone out there. The thing just went boop, and went straight into the drink. And they all looked at me all at once, and I just with a straight face just said, "Oh, that's unfortunate."
I'm gonna have to get a new one and renew my firm account.
So that one tangled up on the line, and I actually was able to reel it in. Drug it through the ocean floor all the way back up through the waves up to the beach, and the thing was destroyed. And I have the insurance on it, so I sent it back to DJI in a box, and they sent me a new one.
I'm on mute over here, but I'm laughing.
Yeah,
it's just crazy, dude. These drones, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you just want to get a little closer, just a little. Yeah. Just let's just
the
push
best
it
shots
to the
is one
edge
where you're
a
the
little
most.
bit. Oh my God, I thought that crocodile story or whatever it was going to go totally differently. It sounds like you literally risked your life to get that Mavic back.
I wanted the footage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
man.
and
now you're inspiring me to get another one. I think I'm gonna get
my very
one.
first one I lost 6 days after I got it, so you can't feel too bad.
No, it's part of the game, especially when you're pushing the limits, for sure.
Yeah.
So, man, I gotta figure out a way to come visit you and fish, man. This just sounds so cool to me. This whole fishery, and it's all like top water, stick baits. Like, this is just, it's so cool, man. You got
very visual. The water's pretty clear too.
Do you ever travel like outside of Cabo, or I mean, why would you, right? But I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Actually, most years after I cast, I get out and fish in Florida for the rest of the week. So I fished a few times out in Florida. Both east and west coast of Florida, and I was actually up in Colorado a couple weeks ago, and we went fly fishing for some really, really small trout that were very beautiful and very fun to catch on the super light tackle, but they were smaller than some of our bait fish.
So what keeps you going? I mean, especially after a world record for snook, which there are so many anglers out there that are, whether they admit that they're chasing that or not. I mean, that is like a massive achievement. I mean, how do you stay fired up? How do you keep going?
Man, more and more, I think for me, what's been really exciting is trying to be able to film what we love about this fishing, this fishery, all those moments that, got us fired up in the beginning and still do. Every year the season comes around and you start to see those fish, the mullet migrating through, and the incredible way like roosterfish will charge and feed on these things. And I got really into filming stuff. And so just more and more I've been trying to figure out creative ways to capture those moments and, edit them creatively. I like making videos. I like, showing what gets me excited, what, the cool, like small moments that are really intense about the fishing. If you can film those in like really high quality and not just like a GoPro shot of it, that's far out. And that's why, you heard me kind of throw my nose up at GoPro footage some, is because, there's so much GoPro footage, and a lot of it is like of scenarios where if you had filmed it and with a different camera, higher quality, better frame rate, some of that footage is just unbelievable. But when you get it with a GoPro, granted, if you GoPro, you do capture it, you do get it, but there's so much more creative ways to like show that and edit it in. And I really get excited about filming it. Sometimes those drone shots or all of that, I love trying to catch those moments that most people don't see that perspective. They don't understand what a roosterfish chasing bait really looks like or how intense it is. And if you can capture that and film it and like, pretend like you're someone from planet Earth, like, then that gets me going. That's almost as fun as hooking some of those fish now. Like you said, I've caught most of the stuff from the shore. I got a couple bucket list fish that I'm chasing and want to get them on film. But most of the normal stuff from the shore, I've caught them as big as I can see myself catching them. So, yeah. I mean, it's filming it. Getting it on film, trying to show people.
I noticed on one of your posts, it was obviously drone footage, but it showed a crazy school of roosterfish.
Yeah. Stuff like that, phenomenons that you don't see too often. That was like probably 500 roosterfish that were all 50 pounds plus. 50 to 80 pound fish.
And that's something you'd never be able to see without the drone. I mean, you could maybe see some from shore, but you're never going to know the quality or the quantity of the fish out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you learn a lot. And
what do you think makes them school like that? Because aren't they like, I mean, are they normally solitary predators? Or are they schooling up? I don't know too much.
Well, normally they are. That it was funny. That morning, I fished that morning, and all of those fish came in and fed super hard in the morning at first light, at gray light in the morning. There was roosterfish everywhere, just tearing up the mullet. And then as soon as the sun came up, they were all gone, and the bite was done. And then it just made me wonder. I was like, oh, where'd they go? How did they disappear? That many fish disappear. And so I started flying the drone around, and just offshore a little bit, like further than you could reach with a cast, that whole school had gotten together out there and was just doing a big loop around out in the open water.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was like a whole learning experience. You're like, so they just go out there and they sit and wait till the evening or the next morning, or
just for that tiny little window.
Yeah. So it's just, one more piece of information that you learn from seeing them like that.
That's priceless. It really is.
Yeah.
When you're running around on these trips and even fishing by yourself now, is the drone always with you? And like you'll launch it if you feel like you need to check something out?
It's always there. Yeah.
That's so cool. So it's really become like another tool in your tackle box pretty much.
For sure. Yeah. And it's not that it gives you it does give you an advantage, but it's not like it's like guaranteeing you a fish or something. You're still, those fish, even when you spot them on the drone and find them, it's still a real challenge to try and get that fish to bite,
It's the same as if you found them if you found them without the drone, you still got to get them to chew.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But with the drone, it's got to be a lot more frustrating where you're like, oh my God, I'm looking at some amazing fish and they're not even into this at all.
I've always said it's like a blessing and a curse. It's almost sometimes it's almost better to, have the hope of there being fish out there. And
sometimes it's like, I'd rather not even know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, some days you fly the drone and you don't see anything. You'll fly along the entire beach and the conditions look perfect and everything looks amazing and you think it's going to be a great day and you fly the drone up. You're like, okay, where are the fish? And you fly it and there's nothing. And you don't see anything along miles of beach. And you just go back, like you fly the drone back, like devastated. You're like, well, it's not even worth casting, and you're looking at the water and like, on a normal day with no drone, you'd be casting all morning thinking you're going to get a bite. So, it works both ways.
Yeah.
You definitely, it's kind of like a heartbreaker too when you get out there and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
there's not really a chance,
Yeah, you're just like, all right, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go home.
Yeah, I've had mornings like that.
I believe it, where you're just cruising the whole thing and you're like, all right, it's completely dead.
Yep, there's nothing.
So you've seen Cabo throughout your whole life, 34 years. Do you think that Cabo has been overfished?
I think well, most of the fish that we get here are migratory fish, so they're coming from somewhere else. And some of the areas where these fish go and spawn up north of here and down south of here, mainland Mexico, I think those areas get fished really, really hard illegally, and it has had an impact on the numbers of fish because of the methods and the amount of
Because
fishing
of
that
long
they
lining
do commercially. Long lining and gill netting, yeah,
and
the
gill
two
netting.
primary.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, they
So
do
so
some pretty heavy gill netting up north of here.
how can anybody fight against that? How can somebody like you who makes a living off this fight back against the people that are totally misusing the entire thing?
Man, it's pretty much near impossible. I mean, it's especially here. It's very corrupt. I've like taken videos of I've had them throwing out big gill nets right in front of me on the shore, which is 100% illegal.
Oh my God.
And like, you take pictures and videos of them doing it, and you can, with the cameras I have and the drones, so you can see these guys' faces and the numbers on their boat and everything. And you take them into the authorities, and nothing happens. It's somebody's family member, or they're getting paid off by somebody.
And they're just
And
killing
that's
everything with those nets. It's like roosterfish, whatever they can kill. It's all
Oh
gonna
yeah,
die.
no, I've been there on the beach while they were pulling up nets with, hundreds of roosterfish that were like 1 pound.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, just like there was whole schools of these little roosters around, and they just like gill netted all of them. And they'll take them. They have contacts in the Asian market and stuff that buy any kind of fish in bulk. It just doesn't matter. I don't know. Maybe they turn them into dog food or cat food, whatever. But
So there's a whole influence there from the economies of China and other places in Asia, you think?
oh yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely far-reaching markets on a lot of levels, and a lot of illegal fishing, especially north of here, where there's not as much presence of other people, out of sight. They fish some of those areas really hard and just really damaging practices. That long lines that are a couple miles long, with hooks every so often, and they just take everything.
Everything. That's so unforgiving. Such a crazy thing. And like, you don't want to, you think about people and you try to put yourself in their shoes, right? And you think about these guys that would actually go out there and put 1,000 line or 1,000 hooks out on a line and just kill everything. And you got to think like, all right, maybe this guy has like some good reason to do this. Like he's trying to provide for his family or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I still can't wrap my head around it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very, very short-sighted, and they have no grasp of like sport fishing at all. Those guys are generations of commercial fishermen, and obviously, the in our generations now, there's just so much more access to fish things more, and so they just do it more extreme and more extreme, and they don't. It's a very short-sighted view of stuff, but I've been with guys out on like some of these commercial guys out in the middle of nowhere that just the mentality where even something as simple as like not polluting, it was never like taught to them growing up at all. So like they'll be out there and be fishing, and they'll drink a soda or something, or eat a bag of chips, and instead of sticking it in the bottom of the boat somewhere, they just throw it overboard. And like you're like, whoa, 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 no, put that in the boat, grab that and You don't throw plastic, and like a little bit later, they're doing it again. They just don't. It's not doesn't mean anything to them. They don't. They never had anyone teach them, or I think it's the same thing, or it has started the same thing with the commercial fishing. Started that way, and then now it's just a greed factor.
It's crazy, dude. It's crazy. You're out there, and it's just like second nature to throw the shit in the water.
Yeah, and they don't think twice about it. They're like, I'm like, where do you think that's gonna go? Where do you think that's gonna end up?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It'll sink out. It'll be gone.
Oh, it'll dissolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you?
Yeah.
Is there like a lot of plastic over there? Because the last place I went that was on the Pacific side of the world was Guatemala, and there was a ton of plastic there. It was
We actually don't have that much, surprisingly. I don't know if it has to do with the currents that carry it somewhere else, but our beaches are pretty darn clean. Yeah, it's surprising. The way that people treat it and stuff. It's not. It should be dirtier than it is.
So, do you have any competition in terms of other surf casting guides, or is this kind of a corner of the market that you've pretty much locked down?
I think the answer is A and B. There is guys. There's a couple other guys who guide down here, and but none of them have done it consistently for years, and they've all of them kind of. There's one other guy that's been doing it for a little while now, a Mexican guy, and he guides, and there's enough business for both of us. We're still good friends and stuff. And then there's been more and more like startup guys that moved down here from the States, and hey, I'm going to start guiding off the beach, and they I'm going to invest and open up this and do that. And yeah, it's all right. It's like, sure, if you want to go out with them,
yeah, but
I'm not too worried about it,
Yeah, because you're a local. They can't fuck with that local knowledge. Like, none of these other guys were raised out here. I mean, come on.
I don't know. You just when you've been doing it this long, it's you're still seeing more than anyone else out there. I mean, it's that thing where we all get out on the beach. Sometimes we're all out on the same beach, and someone's supposedly guiding, and you're like, oh, you see that? You see the way this is doing this and this, and like you're talking to these guys, and you still see that they don't get it.
Yeah. Have you ever had any clients that were kind of upset with their experience? Like maybe some clients that didn't know what they were getting into, like where you're just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like you're coming.
No, never. No, of course. Yeah.
They have to know. I mean, at a certain point, it's like,
yeah.
It's like, what is this? It's like you said before, where they said to you, what is this, a spinning reel or whatever?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've had all, like I said, you run into all kinds of.
But you must meet some cool people. Like you met, what's his name? The kid that pushed you to get the snook. I mean, this sounds like,
yeah.
Dude, you've got such a cool job. This is so cool.
No, I mean, you do get to meet all kinds of people. I've taken out, rocket scientists to, one of the guys worked on a big project on the Mars rover. He did, and then another guy he developed the rocket propulsion systems for the NASA space launches and stuff. And
you got to take Elon fishing.
That'd be an interesting one. That'd be fun.
I bet he comes through Cabo. I bet he stops through there a couple times a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he does.
It's just a matter of time, bro. It's all gonna come together. You're gonna take Elon fishing, and you're gonna hook into a marlin from shore with Elon. It's gonna be game over.
That would be it. That'd be like winning the lottery.
You never know, dude. I'm coming to Cabo. You can just come down there. You don't have to bring any tackle. You'll supply everything. I mean, I could just walk
show
up
and
shorts
show up
and
flip flops. Yep, shorts and flip flops. You're ready to go.
That is awesome. Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you don't have to no fishing license required. Fishing from the shore.
Cool. Yeah, because they're out there
Yeah.
checking licenses left and right, I'm sure.
Yeah, they do on the boats, but they don't. There's no requirement from the shore.
You think the billfish population has been fucked up by all the illegal fishing over there? Because I know, like, when
I
you
mean,
think
they
Cabo,
They
you're
have been
thinking
fishing them.
marlin. You're thinking, like, there's got to be a ton of tournaments that happen in Cabo. I mean, it's one of the top bill fishing destinations on the planet. But do you think that is still the case despite all these years of heavy fishing?
I would say numbers have probably gone down, but there's still really good billfish fishing for sure. But they do overfish them commercially and illegally very hard north of here, where they congregate in bigger numbers. And I would say the guys offshore probably have that same feeling that it's messing with their fishery. But all the boats are still going out and getting marlin. It's not uncommon to get one or two nice striped marlin every boat that goes out,
So not much
any time of the year.
Not much has changed. It's still a great billfish fishery.
Oh, it's still a great billfish fishery for sure. Yeah. And if you come during like the peak seasons for those and go offshore, there's a lot of fish to be caught.
Man, I've had you on the phone for almost an hour and a half. I feel like I could just talk to you about this forever because I don't know. The more I'm talking to you about this, the more I'm thinking about the one time I went to Cabo San Lucas and what a magical place it is, especially from the shoreline. It's just that thunderous surf, all of that. It's like a different world. So, dude, it is so cool to have you on the show and hear about how you've totally carved out a way to really kick ass and make a living fishing in Cabo. And I got to come visit. That's it. I gotta come down for that cold water season or whatever you said that was.
Yeah, no,
Dude,
it can be a fun time for sure.
Any one of those species that you target, just catching any one of them from shore. I mean, where is there anywhere else that you can really target mahi and almost break the 50-pound class from the shore? I mean, this is an insane spot.
It's rare. It's maybe somewhere in the world, but it's pretty cool to see them. I just put up a video of filming one right next to the shore that was lit up in some really weird colors. He tried to imitate a roosterfish in his coloring, and he lit up to feed on the bait right up next to the shore in stripes, black and greenish blue stripes.
Is that the one you got from the drone?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw that before I read the caption, I was like, "Oh my God, look at this roosterfish."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a lot of friends who have been seeing fish their whole lives down here, and the first thing they thought it was a rooster, and then everyone realized that it was a dorado.
Thanks again for calling in, Wes. Man, this is
right on, brother.
It's an epic show, dude. I really appreciate you calling in. And
no, I appreciate your time.
Just waiting for you to do.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brooklyn Fishing Club podcast. We really appreciate your feedback, so please like, subscribe, share, leave us a review, let us know what you think, let us know who you want to hear next. And if you have any questions, visit brooklynfishingclub.com or shoot me an email at info@brooklynfishingclub.com.